Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Whatever time of day you're tuning in, we're glad that you're here. Welcome to the Martell Group Fireside Chat, your monthly dose of real talk at the intersection of sales and marketing. Each month, we sit down with a leading industry expert to explore fresh perspectives, hard-earned insights, and emerging trends, all through the lens of sales and marketing strategy. In this episode, I sat down with Amanda for a deep dive into her journey into partnerships and why that role matters more than most people will realize. We break down what a partnership role actually is, the problems that it solves that a normal sales and marketing team can't solve alone, common misconceptions, and the key skills future partnership leaders should be building right now. Have a listen. You have probably seen it. Your inbox is probably flooded. I know mine is too, of people who are just trying to use AI-driven copies or a whole bunch of just like generic language to get your attention, but no one's actually trying to build a relationship.
We're so saturated with AI slop messaging that people yearn for genuine connection. And so all of that to say, the really smart companies are noticing that and investing in partnerships accordingly, knowing that the market has less trust in businesses than ever. And so being able to have those partnerships function and rely on real people and real connection is going to be what drives the business forward in this AI era.
Now, if you've ever wondered how partnerships really drive growth behind the scenes, this one's for you. So sit back, relax, and let's dive right into it. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Martell Group Fireside Chat. I'm so happy that you stopped back by to hear yet another exciting conversation. At least I'm excited about it, and I hope that you guys are too. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce today's podcast guest, Miss Amanda Nielsen. Now, Amanda wears a ton of different hats, and don't fret, we'll get a chance to hear about that in just a little bit. But Amanda wears a lot of different hats with a lot of different organizations and companies and things of that nature that she interacts with. I'm not going to steal too much of her thunder, and we'll dive into it in just a second. But first off, Amanda, welcome. It's great to have you here. And how are you doing today?
Hey, Chris. I'm good. Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's Friday. I think you mentioned you're up in Colorado. Down here in Texas, we're finally getting more sun than ice, which is nice. And it's about 75 degrees out today, so I'm happy.
Nice.
I'm happy. I'm not snowed in anymore, which is awesome.
Wow. I can't say the same. It's 70 degrees here almost in Denver. I rode my mountain bike this morning, but I'm not happy about it because I'd rather be skiing, and we've had a really, really terrible season so far.
Yeah. I one of these days I want to get up there and ski again, or snowboard again rather, but we could talk about that another different day. So first off, it's so good to have you here, and I'm excited to kind of dive into a couple different topics. We obviously got a chance to talk previously and go over a couple different things. We'll talk about all the hats that you wear. So I want to start by just diving into who you are, what you do, quick little introduction so that the audience kind of understands who they get to hear from today, and kind of explaining all of those different hats that you wear. So what can you tell us about yourself?
Well, first and foremost, the hat that I'm wearing right now for this interview is from the Pilates studio that I go to. I go to Solid. So that's the physical hat I'm wearing today. But metaphorical hats, I wear many in the professional realm. So my name is Amanda Nielsen. I'm based out of Denver, Colorado. And my primary domain is the partnership space. So I am a partnerships manager right now at Box. And then on the side, I do some partner program consulting. And then most recently, I now do a course for people looking to pivot into partnerships as a career path. And then on the non-partnerships front, I am a big internet person. So I'm a content creator on LinkedIn. And my content journey has kind of spun off into a little e-commerce store inspired by some of the memes and just humorous content and commentary that I've made over the years about the tech industry. So that's called Thought Leader Labs, THOT Leader Labs. And that's an e-com store with hats, mugs, silly corporate gifts and things like that.
I can also relate on the content creator side because, I think we talked previously, I do a little bit of that myself. And so getting to connect with other content creators, especially people that are creating content on LinkedIn, is super, super interesting. I definitely want to talk about that, but Let's look at the partnership stuff first, because I think that that's very, very interesting. My initial question is this something that you went to like school for, that you studied for? Like how do you end up in this pathway of being in the partnership management space or the partnership topic space for everything that you do? How did that occur?
Yeah, like ever since I was a little girl, I was like, I want to be a partnerships manager, an enterprise
This is
SaaS.
it.
Yeah, I'm living the dream. No, I wanted to be a marine biologist, but that didn't pan out.
I
I
understand.
stumbled into partnerships. So I went to school for marketing.
Hmm.
I was always someone who was very like creative. I like to read and write a lot, and just like create content. And I like social media. So I was like, oh, like marketing, that's a job.
Sure.
So I went to school for marketing. My like big internship throughout most of college was at an agency in the HubSpot ecosystem.
Mm.
So they were like inbound marketing agency, and that turned into my full-time job after college. And I was hired to be like an in-house marketer. So I was doing the marketing for the marketing firm,
Hmm.
not client facing. And part of that work was working with HubSpot specifically. We were like a top tier HubSpot partner. And
Hmm.
so I had a lot of opportunities to interface with them and start to understand like the agency like software relationship, and I really loved doing that. And so in my role I really doubled down on like the partner marketing. So I
Sure.
loved doing like joint webinars or joint campaigns with HubSpot or any other tech companies that we were working with. And so I kind of fell into it on accident. And then from there, I was like, oh my God, this is a job. Like people do this. And that's how I ended up landing my first like true, just like pure partnerships role.
Yeah.
Was actually, through a relationship, which is, you'll see is a theme of partnerships. Everything is relationships. And I ended up becoming a partner manager at FormStack, which is or was at the time a client of the agency I had worked at.
Gotcha. So it was one of those kind of like falling into almost, I don't want to say like you created your own role, but you almost kind of did in a way where it was like you were managing certain things that eventually built this resume of yours to be able to say, hey, I can do X, Y, and Z with all of these skills that I've kind of obtained, right? You know, you can go through that
Yeah, it was
process.
it was definitely like I really like this aspect of my job, so I'm going to double down on it as much as possible. And then that was like enabling me to land a real like full-time role. And
Sure.
that's something that I teach a lot in my pivot to partnerships career cohort course, is just like
Hmm.
figuring out ways you can get partnership experience in your current role without the title necessarily, because it's so cross-functional. Like there's
Yeah.
a lot of ways regardless of what you actually do.
Let's talk about that the course that you teach and kind of helping people guide their way into that type of career path at a very basic level. How are you defining what a partnership role does? Is there a simple way to define it or a simple way to explain it, or how would you go about explaining that to, like somebody in a coffee shop, so to speak?
The traditional like partner manager role in B2B is essentially the person who manages the relationship with a single or like several partners. Like sometimes you might
Sure.
just manage one really big partnership, or you might have like a book of business of smaller partners with varying degrees of involvement. And your job as the partner manager is to help influence and drive revenue for your company
Hmm.
through the help of this partner. And that, manifests in many different ways, whether it's the partners bringing in deals or the partners coming in and co-selling with you and like increasing deal velocity or deal
Hmm.
size. Or even from like a retention aspect, like helping your customers get more out of your product or service, stay with you, etc. So your job as the partner manager is ultimately that, driving revenue. Like it is a sales role, but it is not just like another flavor of account executive. And so
Hmm.
it's very much a dot connecting, cat herding, introducing people, which if you're, a big relationship person, a social butterfly, you love to network, like it's a really, really great fit. And that was how I kind of came into it, was like I loved like the networking aspect.
Yeah.
And you basically just get to do that for a living. It's pretty awesome.
That you kind of already answered it a little bit, but I see this what you're explaining as this cross section, right? You've got a little bit of marketing, you've got the partnership and networking aspect, you've got the sales aspect, but this isn't like a traditional sales role. So I think I know the answer, but I'm curious to hear it from you. What is the partnership's role solving within any organization? Maybe your own role or roles that you've seen before. What's that solving that like a sales or a marketing department separately couldn't handle on their own? Is it that networking angle, or is there something else in there?
Yeah, so it's really like the management of the partners.
Sure. Okay.
Because as an account executive, like you're focused on, you know, like managing and closing deals, right? You don't necessarily, you're managing the relationship with the customer. You don't necessarily have the bandwidth or time to manage relationships with the partners. And not every deal requires or includes a partner.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense for us to be a separate role. And then on the marketing front is like, there are partner marketing people, like there are partnership flavors of marketing. But again, like that's a marketing role and it is truly like an account management sales role. So that's why marketing can't necessarily take that on. They take on the partnership marketing. So like if I go to the partner marketing team, I'm like, hey, my partner and I want to do this joint webinar and we'll drive
Yeah.
registrants together and we'll create the content together and so on. But yeah, partner marketing is generally like its own thing.
Now, when you go to teach these cohorts or go to kind of lead people down this content journey, I'm sure that there's kind of like a series of questions or something like that that you're almost asking the I don't want to say the audience, but you're asking people who are coming to you and basically like saying, hey, you've got like a qualifying list of questions. What does some of that entail? How are you trying to help guide people into taking this type of pathway with their career, or at identifying that maybe this isn't what you actually want?
Yeah, so I help people figure out like one, what the role is, and two, if it's a good fit for them,
Sure.
in the first part of the course. And in terms of whether or not it's a good fit, I'd say anyone who enjoys the relationship aspect of business, like
Okay.
maybe they're a marketer and they like marketing to people, creating content, being creative, doing communication, but maybe they aren't a fan of like, the kind of impersonal, like I'm writing to you as the company and it's kind of, we're spray and praying with a bunch of emails and it's kind of like, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a little corporate. And because like I was an in-house marketer and I would write campaigns and stuff and it's very different, right? You don't get that same like true like connection when you're writing to many people at once, kind of
Mm-hmm.
shouting into a void. So like that's one example. If you're looking for something more, if you're coming from like a sales role, like a traditional like account executive or maybe like an SDR or something like that, and you are doing the relationship side, but it feels a little transactional,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe you want something that is a little more strategic, right? Not to say that sales isn't strategic, it is, but being in partnerships allows you to flex a lot of different muscles beyond just like selling,
Yeah.
right? Selling is part of it, but relationship building, business development, like really comprehensive strategy, marketing, all these different things you get to do within the partnerships role. So it allows you more variety and it also just is less of a grind. I mean, it's not easier or anything like that, but the
Sure.
way you are comped and the way your quota works is a little different.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're kind of tired of like the pressure of being an account executive, but you still want to make sales money and be in sales, it's a good alternative.
Kind of a two-part question here out of curiosity. You're managing partnerships. Are you also going out and finding new ones? Or do you have a sales team that will kind of hand those off to you for you to manage?
Yeah, so the thing to know about partnerships is it's a very new function relative to other parts of the business, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
every single company you come across is going to have a marketing team. Generally, they're going to have a sales team, they'll have customer success, but not everybody has a partnerships team. It's not like a hallmark of how to scale your business
Right.
yet.
Right.
It's still pretty new. It's been called a bunch of different things over the years, but like partnerships as we know it today is relatively new. And I say that to explain that most partner teams and most partner programs are still pretty immature. Even at really big companies, we're still
Interesting.
kind of figuring this out. And so not every partner team or partner program is necessarily looking to bring on more partners. Maybe they're still in like
Yeah.
build mode. In my role at Box specifically, I manage a book of business of certain partners, and I also am responsible for supporting new partner interest and kind of vetting new partners who come in.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm not like necessarily proactively recruiting partners, but at previous companies, I have had that in my role where I was part of my comp was on how many new partners I was able to bring on. So it just depends on the maturity of the program.
Gotcha. So then the second part of that question is, what kind of on the vetting side, in a way, you have a new partner that wants to create some sort of relationship to you. I know you enjoy the networking part, you enjoy going out and making those relationships, but let's say you have a new partner that wants to come to you and start doing things together and doing joint webinars or events or whatever it is. What would what would need to be said to capture your attention? What are some signals that you look for where you're kind of saying, okay, this is beneficial, or we can utilize this, or there is synergy, to use the corporate term, between the two of us that we could kind of utilize here?
I'd say you should generally have an ideal partner profile with certain criteria
I like that.
based on, who you want to work with. And you come up with your ideal partner profile ultimately by working backwards from the customer and figuring out what other companies are working with your customers so that you can then work with those companies and jointly expand, the customer base that you have in common. So that's like part of it is just like, do they fit the criteria on paper? Does it make sense? Is it aligned with where your company is trying to go strategically? Um, and then two, I'd say like, what are the vibes like?
I love
I
that.
think, yeah, like I think there are so many partnership opportunities that I've had that make a lot of sense on paper, but the working relationship just wasn't there. Or maybe, your company versus their company, maybe they have partnerships as less of a priority, whereas like your team is like locked in and like dedicating a lot of resources. And so there's varying levels of effort and consistency and follow up, even though it would make sense to work together.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, I've had partnerships that have started as just relationships, like personal relationships from like past companies or like
Yeah.
past professional experiences that weren't like a perfect fit on paper. But the relationship was there, the mutual interest was there, and like the cultural like alignment was there. And they turn out to be extremely fruitful just because of your working relationship and the drive of the partner.
Again, it's more that networking thing at the end of the day, right? To where if you have somebody that approaches you, or you're tapping into past relationships, whatever the situation is, it's still a good exercise to go through that, whether or not the partnership works out or not, right? Because you're still going through the motions of having the conversations and figuring out where there's alignment, and just like getting reps in at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, and like, there might be a time in the future where it's a good fit, but maybe not now. You can, call on that person in the future. If you've built rapport, you can call them for a favor or an introduction or whatever. And I think networking is such an important part of the job, for like your actual function, but then as an individual and partner manager as well, like it's really, really important because who you know is like what's going to help you get another job in the future, whether it's you
Bingo.
being hired for your Rolodex or finding the job, or in, some cases, the job finding you based on who you know. Like I can say that since my initial college internship that turned into my full-time job, I've never gotten a job through just like applying Like it's
Yep.
always been like I know someone there, they've reached out to me or I've reached out to them. It's always been through a relationship.
Now that I think about it, I think the same can be said for me too. Like ever since I had my initial internship, I think that very first job that I had, maybe I had to apply to, but I still knew people, and it was just like the networking opportunities that have led from one thing to another to another to another, and that's the same for my professional and my content creation side, right? It all kind of threads together, and I think that that's such a worthwhile skill. Like you said, for partnership, partner managers or anybody who wants to play in the partner space, but anyone in sales too. I mean, you have probably seen it. Your inbox is probably flooded. I know mine is too, of people who are just trying to use AI driven copies or a whole bunch of just like generic language to get your attention, but no one's actually trying to build a relationship. No one's actually going out and trying to like actually understand like, hey, Amanda, what are you experiencing today? Or hey, what do you have going on? Or like talk to me a little bit about what you do, and maybe I'll tell you a little bit about what I do, and let's just see what happens, right? There's very little of that anymore, and there's very much like I'm just going to send thousands of emails a day and hope for the best.
Yeah, no, 100%, especially with AI, like it's just gotten so different. One thing I talk about a lot in my cohort is like why it's a good time right now and why partnerships is a really cool career path to move into.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of the reasoning there is like one, like the way we can contact people and interact with people has changed. There's been a ton of regulation around like outbound and like how
Mm-hmm.
we contact people, how we can capture their info. So like traditional marketing methods have kind of tightened up quite a bit and prospecting as well. But the second part is that, like you said, we're so like saturated with AI slop messaging
Yep.
that people yearn for genuine connection. And so all of that to say, like the really smart companies are noticing that and investing in partnerships accordingly, knowing that the market has less trust in businesses than ever. And
Mm-hmm.
so being able to have those partnerships function and rely on real people and real connection, is going to be what drives the business forward in this AI era.
Yeah, bingo. Now, I want to spin off of that response a little bit and kind of ask because you mentioned earlier that partnership manager roles, partnership roles are still very young and very. I think you may have even said a little immature on the side, but very very young, very kind of like infant stage in terms of the development of everything. It seems like, and especially with your cohorts, you're walking people through what it's like to be on that career pathway and to find those roles and to open those things up at certain companies. There's some companies you mentioned that have partnership roles, some that maybe don't or have it in a different way. It's kind of categorized a different way. Do you think every company should be looking at this? Are there certain types of companies that should be looking at having these roles? Like what do you think the qualifications are for somebody listening to this to say, hey, I should consider this for my organization, or maybe, hey, we're not there yet?
That's a good question because I think ultimately everybody could benefit from a partnership strategy. It's going
Okay.
to look a little different no matter where you are, but anytime, especially in B2B, when you're dealing with complex sales cycles and big, big, big investments, being able to have that credibility and relationship aspect is going to help you sell more.
Yeah.
The other important thing about partnerships is that it helps you reach more people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're marketing to one person or one company in the context of B2B. And you can build that relationship with one company and they can buy from you and you can sell to them. And there's generally kind of a finite point at which you can sell more things to them. They can only
Yep.
buy so much software or services or whatever. And so they have ultimately kind of like a point at which the value levels off.
Yeah.
But with partners, right? Instead of building one relationship with one customer, you're building one relationship with one partner to then get access to all of their customers.
Yeah.
And so you have this kind of like exponential growth opportunity by building these relationships with the partners as opposed to focusing on the individual prospects or customers.
Yeah. So then with that in mind, if somebody were listening to this and needed to explore that more, or they just needed to have that as a part of their overall business plan. And whether that means getting a partnership manager in 6 months or 6 years, it's at least somewhere on the roadmap. What do you think these people need to be thinking of, or like what are some key factors that they need to think of in order to essentially figure out if they want this position for their company, how fast they need to get it, or at least like what their overall goals are, if that makes sense?
It's a good question. And like, to be honest, it doesn't really matter what size or what stage of growth you're at.
Okay.
Like, I've worked with companies that are two people and they've done the majority of their revenue through partnerships.
Oh, wow.
It's in a
Okay.
very bootstrapped and scrappy capacity, but like their entire go-to-market strategy, building the company is partners
Mm-hmm.
versus you get, older companies who have gone the traditional route and built their go-to-market through standard like marketing and sales. And now that they're big, now they're trying to adopt partnerships. So stage and size don't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like the strategy and your readiness to hire or start implementing, it's really like ask yourself like how well do you understand it? And two, like, are you like truly committed and like locked in?
Mm-hmm.
Partnerships, because it's relationship based, is a long game. And you'll get a lot of companies, and like I've even experienced this firsthand when there's a lot of buzz about partnerships. They're like, yeah, like we want to do it, we want to do it. And so they bring you in and they're like, okay, go do the partnership thing. And I'm like, okay. Just so you know, like we need a lot of like cross-functional resources and alignment. We need budget and we need time. And people want it to be this like magic wand. And
Instantaneous, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and so like if you don't understand it well enough to like accept that that's the reality of how you build partnerships, you're gonna become impatient and then be like, well, screw this, it's not working.
Yeah.
So making sure that you really understand it and like what the trade-offs and payoffs truly are and like what it takes to get there, I think is the most important thing. And then making sure that you have buy-in from the rest of your org. I mean, if you're a small org and it's just you, then fine. But if you have other leadership teams that you need to get on board, you can't really successfully implement a partner program without alignment from marketing and sales and customer success at the very minimum, because everything that you do in partnerships revolves around the customer. Um, and so just the nature of the job is like you're gonna need to work with sales to help them co-sell with a partner, or you're gonna need to work with marketing to have marketing promote your partners
Yeah.
to, our prospect or customer base so that our partners can actually, make business off of this relationship, or working with customer success to make sure that you and the partner's mutual customer is, having a positive experience. So if you have people who are like, what is partnerships? We don't get partnerships. We're not interested. Your job is going to be really hard and your partnership function is not going to be super successful.
I want to shift gears ever so slightly because I definitely want to hear about the content creation stuff that you do, and it sounds like it kind of maybe started off of just some fun memes or some fun different things here and there, but I'm curious, as somebody who's a part of kind of a larger public organization, right? And there's a lot of stuff that you do outside of that. First off, how do you find the time to be able to do a lot of this content creation stuff? Because I know what it takes and it's a lot. How are you finding the time? But like, what's that like trying to build a little bit of like a personal brand, or at least like a little bit more awareness to yourself while also doing X, Y, and Z?
Yeah, that's a good question. Where do I find the time? I don't really. I kind of just figure it out. I wish I was like the kind of person where I was like, well, I sit down one Sunday at the beginning of the month and I batch all my content and blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very much not that. It's like, it's just whatever. It is like, oh, I have an idea. I'm going to write about that right now. Or like, I have an idea. I'm going to write in my like stream of consciousness, like notes app
Right.
thing, and then I, like go and pick from it. Sad to say that even at the stage I'm at, I still wake up every morning going, huh, what am I going to post today? Not every day. Sometimes I'm like, if it's like a higher involvement project, like it's a video or something like that,
Right. Yeah.
that I generally, I'm going to do ahead of time and that'll be scheduled. But it is not 100% like content calendared out.
Hmm.
But in terms of like finding the time as well, like I'm just a social media person.
Yeah.
I'm Gen Z, so it's always been a big part of my life. And creative expression has always just been something that I do, regardless of whether or not it's related to my like career and personal brand or not. Like I'm creating no matter what. So I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I might as well do it in a way that helps me professionally and that I can ultimately monetize. Um, so that's kind of that's the process. There is no
Yeah.
process, really.
And that's honestly that's what I was going to ask is, do you have you kept up with that to kind of scratch the itch of like I still want to be creative? Not saying you're not creative in your role, but it still gives you like an outlet to be creative or to put certain content out that will speak to people, especially on LinkedIn. But then you can still kind of say, hey, I was able to check that box that I need in my brain to like, keep moving and keep things going and stay on top of everything that I do.
Yeah, 100%. It definitely gives me an outlet and like just it helps me in my job as well. Like as a partnerships person, being really visible on social media
Hmm.
has helped me a ton. It's not a requirement. Like if you want to go into partnerships, plenty of people build successful careers in partnerships without ever posting on LinkedIn. But I will say, if you do post on LinkedIn, it will really like supercharge your growth and your ability to like one, do your current job really well, but two, have lots of opportunities flying in the door at all times.
That was kind of what I was going to ask a little bit. I can almost assume that you've probably pulled in different partnership opportunities or at least like different things to excel both sides of what you do from one or the other, right? It sounds like there's a thread that ties all that together.
Yeah, 100%. I get all of my like consulting and like cohort or like mentorship leads inbound through LinkedIn.
Hmm.
And then on the partnership side, like in my full-time role at Box, for example, like lots of people find out about Box literally just because they follow me, or they're like, oh, we always thought like Dropbox and Box were the same thing. But like, until I started following you, like I realized they're separate companies or
Not
like,
quite.
yeah, so I mean, I get that all the time that people find out about the company through me. And so it's benefit for both sides for sure.
And I think that goes back to the power of social media and like how you and I probably interact with it way more than people who are maybe a little bit older than us, let's be honest.
Mhm.
But even more so on a basic note, it goes back to the simplicity of being able to build a network and have a relationship and kind of build relationships with people, network with people. That in itself is just such a valuable skill, again, that we're kind of lost in with this AI slop, if you will. We're kind of lost in with being inundated with various sales emails throughout the day. Like just being able to have a relationship with somebody, build a partnership, or build kind of like a networking opportunity is huge nowadays that will help excel and have a thread between everything that you do.
100%. It benefits everything in my life, like without a doubt.
I know we're kind of coming up on our time here, and I want to be respectful of that. I think this is really really eye opening for me, who has not had partnership roles in the past myself, but I've been involved with different people who have had those roles, right? Or been a part of companies who value different partnerships for what they do, and kind of hearing from somebody who is in the driver's seat, who has cohorts to walk people through this career path. I think it's really really enlightening from my side, at the very least, to kind of hear all of these answers from you. So I really really appreciate you kind of giving a lot of this insight to everything.
I mean, I could talk for like hours about all this stuff. So I'm always excited to have an opportunity to just like share partnerships with more people. I
Yeah.
think in like 8 years, we're going to start to see partnerships. It's like I always joke that like, once your aunt and uncle know what partnerships is, then you'll know we've
It's
made
a good
it. And
indicator.
like,
I
you know what
like
I
that.
mean? It's like they know what marketing and sales is, but they don't know what partnerships is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Eventually
yeah.
they will. I think it's growing. So.
Yeah, that's really good. I like that. I'm gonna start using that line. Once your aunt and uncle know, then you're good. Awesome. So I have three final questions for you that I want to kind of put out there. One, Any final words that you have for any listeners out there to consider about partnerships? You've already said a lot of really significant stuff, but if you wanted to sum up everything, or you wanted to speak to somebody who was maybe even considering this career path, like what's something very short that you would kind of want to bestow upon them, if you will?
Like I said, now is the best time to pivot into this career path because the talent pool is so small. Like,
Mm,
can you name more than five people in partnerships off the top of your head? Probably
I
not.
don't think so, to be honest.
In marketing, sales, customer success, like we know those people, those are very saturated career paths. And while they're great, they are saturated and the job market is worse than ever. So from that aspect, like now is a really good time. And two, just the like nature of the job is awesome. You
Hmm.
get paid to network for a living. You'll probably never have to apply for another job again. You get to flex all these muscles and have a lot of variety and excitement in your role. You get to meet really cool people. And like the way it's structured from like a compensation perspective is super appealing because like I said, it's ultimately a sales role. So you have commission and you can make a really amazing living off of the partnerships career path. Like it's afforded me, the ability to pay off all of my student loans within
Yep.
like a year of graduating and, having no help or anything from family. I was able to buy a house by myself when I was 25. Again,
Awesome.
like no help from family or didn't live with like a partner or anything. And partnerships has sent me like around the world for different trips and stuff because a lot of that like relationship building happens in person. So
Yep.
if you want the opportunity to travel and be exposed to a lot of different things, it's pretty cool. And then, yeah, on the AI front, that's not going anywhere. We're going to see more and more roles automated away, which is scary. But I
Hmm.
think partnerships is somewhat safe from that. I always refer to it as AI resistant because one, the relationship nature of partnerships is like that's the magic, right?
Yeah.
If we get rid of that, if we AI that, then the way partnerships works is fundamentally changed. Um, and like different functions of like the partnerships motion, like it's all still so new. Again, like how many partnership specific technologies can you name, right?
Right.
We know
Right.
tons of sales tools, tons of marketing tools,
Hmm.
CRMs, whatever, but partnerships technology is also super new. And while it's definitely really, moving and getting more sophisticated, we're really not super close to being able to automate away like entry level partnerships roles like how you can with kind of like the outbounding and like SDR
Right.
type. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons why partnerships is a cool career path. If anyone is interested, feel free to reach out to me. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And I appreciate that. I think it's a really good way to kind of round a couple different things out here and summate everything that you've talked about so far, which is great. I have a question that was left from the previous podcast guest. So on the last podcast, we talked, a lot, and we kind of ended some things off here, and the previous podcast guest left a question for you. Now I'm gonna slightly tweak her question. So Lisa, I apologize, but I'm gonna slightly tweak her question just a little bit to make it hopefully a little bit more relatable to what you see. And you've already kind of mentioned, we've already kind of talked about how partnerships as an overall whole is very, very new. But do you see any sort of systemic problems, whether it's related to partnerships or it's related to maybe resistance in sales and marketing teams that you're seeing that need to be kind of like overcome? Do you see any major problems or roadblocks within partnerships to kind of like that need to be taken care of in order to help a company to thrive or help a company to grow or help partnerships to grow?
Fighting for cross-functional alignment is the job pretty much. Like I
Sure.
always say that, the most important relationships in a partnerships role is actually the ones within your company, not even with the partners themselves. Like
Mm.
working with partners, like that's easy, but like working with account executives and sales leadership,
Yep.
that is where it gets tricky. And you see so much resistance, especially on the sales side, because people don't understand it and they don't want to compromise their deals
Hmm.
and they don't want to complicate, they don't want to add more players. And there's a lot of like winning of hearts and minds to be done your organization to make people see the upside, because there is so much upside for salespeople who understand partnerships and know how to work with partners.
Yeah.
I've seen it. It can help you absolutely crush quota. But if you don't get it and you're just like not open-minded, it can be a big barrier. So I'd say that's probably the biggest one, like culturally. And then from like a functional standpoint too, just making sure that your partner team and your sales team aren't fighting for credit on deals. If you're ever joining a partner program and team where, the rep is making less money because a partner was brought in, don't join that team, because there are ways to make it not work like that. And the account executive is your friend, and you want them to bring you in
Keep
and
them happy.
Yeah. So
yeah, I like that. I like that. Now, I want to also give you the opportunity, if you would like, to leave a question for the next guest. So I will be bringing in somebody else new, continuing the podcast as we do. And if you have kind of like more or less a general question, whether it's business related, partnerships related, as a teaser, the next person we are going to be talking to is a fractional CRO. So they are somebody who works in kind of like the revenue operations field. So I'm kind of curious as to, if you have a question you'd like to leave them to answer, what would that be?
Fractional work is really tough. I've definitely dabbled in it as like a consultant and toyed with the concept of like, am I a contractor or like a fractional employee and so on. And I've seen it work really well for people. And it's kind of like an idealized situation, right? Like you get to just do a little bit of work with a handful of clients, not a little bit. I mean, it's still a lot of work.
Sure, yeah.
But you get variety and you get flexibility and you get all these like really awesome upsides of entrepreneurship and also the money. But like, I guess my question to her would be, what are the downsides? Like someone who's considering that path, the fractional path, what are the drawbacks? Like, what have you had to compromise or sacrifice?
I like that. I will be sure to ask her that question almost immediately. I feel like that'd be a great question to kind of start off a podcast with, but we'll make sure to get to that. So make sure you tune in for the next episode. But for now, Amanda, thank you so much for the conversation today. I think that this was great insight into what you do, the importance of your role, and how you operate with everyone. And again, it all boils down to networking, which is something I know I love. And if you're somebody out there who enjoys the networking aspect of things, then maybe this is the career path for you. So this is all great. Amanda, thank you so much. And I really appreciate this.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me. It was super fun to chat.
Shout out once again to Amanda for spending some time with us for this fireside chat. If you have a favorite part that you enjoyed, feel free to leave a comment down below and let us know your thoughts on this chat with Amanda. Be sure to like the video, consider hitting that subscribe button, and turn on notifications so you can be alerted when future chats go live on our channel. Thanks for listening, and as always, happy hunting.